Well, hello everyone and welcome to tonight's webinar. Tonight we have quite a special webinar. We are very grateful to Mark from Rural Succession for joining us for a webinar tonight. We actually have a pre-recorded webinar, but Mark is online with us as well. So thank you very much, Mark. I will press play on the recording. There is a Q&A function for everyone that you can use as well. So if you have any questions during tonight's webinar, just send them through as we go through the webinar, and Mark's more than happy to answer them at the end. But yeah, so if there is a chat function, if you have any issues, just send through a chat and we can certainly help you out. But yeah, we will have a recording as well available for tonight's webinar. So we'll get cracking tonight.
A number of you are very keen to find out how to, the three ways to start a conversation. So let's just get stuck right into it. I want to start off today by asking you a question. And the question is this: if we had a cuppa and some scones, a cuppa and a chat 30 to 40 minutes from now, and look back to this very moment, what ideas, learnings and strategies would create the greatest value for you? What would be the things that, in other words, what are you looking for? What's going to create the greatest value for you? And what is it that we can maybe teach or impart to you, or share some ideas with you that are going to create the greatest value for you? So I just want you to have a think about those, because I need to help, I guess, you to have some expectations, to have some ideas in regard to what you're looking for. And I'm going to ask you this a lot of times today, and I hope you don't mind, but it just helps us to get better at what we do. When I ask a question such as this, feel free, please, to just put them down in the chat. You can be anonymous, you can be whatever you like, but maybe just give us some feedback. And if you could put down, if we were having a cup of tea and scone, or a cup of coffee, whatever, 30 to 40 minutes from now, what are the ideas? What are the learnings? What strategies? What sort of value are you hoping to achieve from being involved in this workshop today? Because it's my aim to create the greatest value for you. So I just need to know what it is, how you're going to measure me, and what are the things that you're looking for, so that if we do these in future, I make sure that I include all the topics that that you've raised. I mean, we do a lot of surveys of our clients, people that deal with us, even people that haven't dealt with us yet. We ask a lot of questions. We've got great survey tools and so on. And so we think we know what it is that's important to you, but just like to make sure. So if you could just put that down in the chat, thanks, and we'll try and get to it by the end. And the second question I'd like to ask this, and I know this is a workshop I should be teaching, but I'm actually going to start by asking, because I think there's power in great questions, and that is, on the basis that you have the knowledge, the support, and the information that you needed, what's the one thing? What's the one thing that if you took action right now would be the most valuable for your family? What's the one thing which would be the most valuable for your family? If you watch City Slickers, you get this, of course, Curly. What's the one thing? But it is very important, because sometimes we try and do so many things. We try and get involved in so many things that are going on. But really, the reality is, what I'd like from you is just what's the primary thing that, if you can identify that for yourself, the primary thing you need to do, not me, what you need to do, which would create the greatest value for your family. These are the sorts of things that if we were sitting down one-on-one, I hope I could get that out of you and give you the encouragement to take that step to move forward. I'd like to talk about some statistics that we have from probably over 200-300 people that we've talked to over the last 12 months or so, or people who've done our surveys and so on. I just want to talk about the things that traditionally are the big issues for people like yourself. Now, the first one is, and this actually was a real surprise for me when I actually, well, it's not a surprise now, but I mean, when I thought about it, we had to really research this to find out what's the greatest issue, what's the greatest point that we help people with. And the number one issue, 100% of people that we talk to, it's conflict, communication issues, or procrastination. It's either one or all or some of those: conflict, communication issues, and procrastination. So everyone seems to suffer from one or more of those three things. Some other statistics we got were that the last time people had reviewed their wills was greater than 5, 10, 15 years. Over 70% of people that we talked to, it was over 10 years and plus. Over 70% of the people we talked to, it was more than 10 years since I'd last looked at their will, which I guess comes back to the issue of procrastination and matches up very, very well. Using an Australianism, over 75% have admitted to have done bugger all to discuss anything with their family. In other words, over 75% of people we spoke to hadn't taken the first step, didn't know how to start the conversation, and had done basically nothing to discuss their estate and their succession plans with their family. And that same number, interestingly, want a proper specialist. They want real professional advice to sort that out. You know, I talk a lot about, only 3% of lawyers in Australia probably are actually any good at doing this sort of stuff, estate and succession planning. The rest of it's like if you had a brain tumor and you went to a GP, it's kind of the same thing. So over 75% of people understand that what they really need to do is to get real professional help in regard to these areas. And the same number, 75%, also realise they just don't know what they don't know about. They realise they're unaware, they don't know how to start, all those sorts of things. They don't know what issues they need to be thinking about. They don't know they can create asset protection for their family. They don't know what they can do to create the best results for those that they love and those that they care for. But I want to flip over now just onto the positive side. And everyone, once again, we're back to 100%, everyone knows that they can get this sorted, and they can get it sorted professionally, they can get it sorted appropriately. They know they just have to start. They just have to take action to talk to the right people and that they can get this sorted. They know that what they've done in the past just doesn't work. So whatever they've done in the past or haven't done in the past, very, very aware that they've been taking the wrong strategy. They might have been waiting for their financial planner to help them, their accountant to help them, their local solicitor to help them, and so on. And so they know that it's not working. So just relying on the people they already know isn't working for them. They know there's a better way, but they're procrastinating because they don't know what they don't know. And I'll come back again. They don't know who to talk to, who to trust, who to avoid. They don't know what are the issues they need to even be thinking about. So this is, I guess, on the positive side, we can say, well, they know everyone we've spoken to knows you can get it done. You know what you've tried in the past and people you've dealt with in the past, it hasn't worked, and you know there's a better way. You know there's a better way. So what I'd like to open up on today, what I'd like to talk about today is that these are the things I want to talk about, is how to open up communication between the generations. Because the biggest issue, and I mean, this is just a no-brainer, I see this all the time, is the lack of communication, intergenerational communication issues, the lack of talking between the grandparents, the parents, and the children. The second thing is that you just can't afford to leave this in the too hard basket. I want to talk about how much it's actually going to cost your family if you don't do this properly now. I mean, it's pennies to get this sort of stuff sorted out now. And I'll talk about the sorts of numbers, the sorts of costs that people run into if they don't do it properly, and there's squabbles, there's fights, there's contested wills and so on at the other end. I want to talk to you about how you can eliminate conflict and how you can eliminate the risk of contested wills. And that's the great bane for everyone, I think, is that the will would be contested. and what that does to it's not just about money. This is what it does to all the relationships. You know, the fact that nephews never talk to each other again and so on. And I want to talk with you about, we can give you some ideas in regard to how to protect your wealth. You know, you've created great prosperity in your family. So what are some ideas you can have in regard to protecting that prosperity? And I just want to say, for those that hang on till the end, I want to share something with you, and that is, I want to offer you, if you stay to the end, a free 30-minute chat to talk about creating a simple checklist for you to get unstuck and to get this moving forward. And I'll say it maybe in another way. I want to help you start the conversation that you know needs to happen, but that has been difficult for so long. It's probably been eating away at you for a long time, and which is why there is generational conflict, and everyone is getting brassed off, for want of a better Australianism. Everyone's getting a bit brassed off because there is no conversation. No one knows what's going on, and no one knows what the future holds. So no one deals with generational conflict, and you all know it's been going on for years. Now, sure, I have people that tell me, you know, they have great relationships with their kids, and, you know, the kids are never going to do the wrong thing. Everyone's going to live happily ever after, and so on. And I guess, you know, maybe you're the one family that I haven't met yet, or you haven't met yet, where everyone is going to live happily ever after. But I guess I've been around long enough, and I've seen so many families where everyone got on perfectly well while mum and dad were around. And as soon as someone dies, it just all turns to dust, and everyone's fighting. Cousins don't talk to each other again. Siblings don't talk to each other again. And they're fighting over money, and they give most of your estate to the lawyers. So we want to help you have a conversation with me, a free 30-minute conversation, which will give you a link as we're going through this, to allow you to have a chat, to give you some ideas in regard to how to make sure that doesn't happen in your family. And chances are you know someone, I think we all know someone who didn't do this properly, and we've all seen families destroyed or a valuable asset decimated by a contested will. And as I said, the only people that profit from all of this are the lawyers, sadly. So I'm going to ask you another question. That is, what would it be worth to you to have this free 30-minute chat with me? It's a no obligation thing. Like, a chat with me, you don't have to deal with me afterwards if you don't want to. You know, I know that if enough of you talk to me for 30 minutes, some of you will like what I say and will want to do business with me, and that's great. But if you don't, we're not a fit. Honestly, no problem. So don't ever feel any pressure. But during those 30 minutes, I want to help you focus on eliminating communication issues, removing your confusion and conflict. And that's usually from the kids are the ones that are confused. You know very well what's going on, but your children are sort of wondering what the future is going to hold. How to protect your wealth, how to make sure you don't lose money through bankruptcies, through failed marriages, through excess taxation, through early death from one of your children, and so on. We want to help you protect and maintain your prosperity, but also to show you strategies to create fairness, to establish fairness between your siblings. To me, that's a very important thing, and that's 90% of the way of, apart from communication as well, 90% of the way to making sure there's no squabbles at the end of it. So just hang on to the end here until you see it come up where you can book the 30-minute call, and book that 30-minute call. There's no obligation, but I hope I can create some real value and give you a bit of a roadmap to work on, to get you started, to get you unstuck, get you unbogged, whatever you want to call it. That's what we'd like to do for you. So let's just dig in now, and if I may I teach you some ideas I've got around, one, how to start the conversation with dad or mum, if that's the case. Secondly, how to get unstuck. And thirdly, how to ensure and create family harmony. And this is a really important one. It's a key part of our 9-step process, is making sure, as much as we can possibly do, that you create family harmony. You undo the confusion, and you're creating harmony between all your siblings, all your children, making sure that they all get together at Christmas as mates. So let's look at number one. And the first one I'd like to help you with today, so these are the three things we're going to talk about, is how to start the conversation with dad. All your dads out there. So how to start the conversation with dad. And so first of all, let's talk about why is this important, and why it's important is just it's historically difficult. You know, and the further back in the generations you go, or the older the parents are, the more difficult this has been, because back in the day, it's just historically difficult. Back in the day, people didn't talk about money, even with their kids. You sort of just sat down, and at the end of the day, if mum and dad passed on, whatever was in the will, that was that, and nobody knew, nobody had any idea. Older generations just found it really hard to have these sorts of conversations, and that is changing. That is changing significantly. Another reason is why it's difficult is that you've got to look at it from both points of view. See, parents don't want to, or dad doesn't want to talk to the kids about what he wants to do with the property or the business or whatever, because he doesn't know what he's going to do. He wants to die with his boots on, most cases. He doesn't know what he'd do if he passed on the farm to you. He probably doesn't think the kids are up to it. I mean, let's be real about this. Most parents still don't think, after many years of a child being on the farm, that they're as good at running it as the parent is. And the parent also, you know, doesn't want to move out of the house. There's a whole range of reasons why dad just doesn't want to change anything. And from a child's point of view, so if you're working on the farm, you might have been working there 1 year, 5 years, 10 years or whatever, and you're sitting around thinking, you know, and think this from a child's point of view, thinking, gee, I wonder, you know, I'm spending all this time, I'm helping dad build up the business. You know, is there going to be an opportunity for me to end up taking over the business or having an opportunity with the business? They're not looking for a handout. In most cases, they're just not looking for free money. They just want to know so they can get on with their lives. They can plan ahead, and they can look and say, well, okay, you know, if dad's going to just sell this all up and go and live on the coast and put the money in the bank and try and spend it all, and that's fine. And dad's mum are allowed to do that. But if that's what they're going to do, the child can then say, well, okay, if that's all that's going to happen, I may as well go off and create my own career, my own business, and set up myself for the future, rather than just staying on the farm, getting paid a pittance, and you know, there's no future for me on the farm. So you've got to look at it from dad's point of view. You've got to look at it from the children's point of view, because if the kids come to dad and say, hey, dad, what's your plan? You know, there's always that risk that dad will see that as an entitlement or an expectation on the part of the child. In other words, they're only asking because they want some money. They want to know what's in it for them. And 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. The kids just want to know so they can plan for their future. But historically, once again, that's why the children don't talk to the parents, and why the parents don't speak with the kids about it. We sort of touched on entitlements and expectations, and you know, any kids turn up with expectations, to me, it's not a good place to start in regard to a conversation. I think there's always needs to be gratitude. But I mean, as I said before, the reason that the conversation doesn't happen is where maybe one of the kids does have an entitlement attitude, or an expectation that one day all this will be his, and dad doesn't want to have a conversation because that may not be the case. We talked about dying with the boots on. A lot of times dad doesn't want to have a conversation because of that. And as I said before also, you know, what's mum and dad going to do if the children come through and one of the sons or daughters takes over running the business, the property, the farm? What are mum and dad going to do? So there's lots of reasons why there's no conversation going from dad down to the kids and on the way back. So, you know, what I suggested was that I would give you an idea on how to fix that. Well, the first thing is, so how you fix that, how to solve the problem of not having a conversation with dad is someone's got to be brave. It's either got to be the kids that start the conversation, or it's got to be dad says, okay, come on, let's sit down and have a chat about that. You need to show, if you're going to have a conversation with dad, you need to really be clear that the conversation is not around entitlements or expectations. You need to just show and say, hey, dad, can we have a chat about this? I just need to know what the future holds. I need to know what you're thinking, not because I'm expecting anything, not because I'm waiting for you to die to get any cash, but I just want to know what my future is, because, you know, if it doesn't align with what you're thinking, then I'm going to go off and do something else, because I've got to make sure that my family, my kids, my partner and so on, we're all going to have a bright future for ourselves. So I need to have a conversation. And so make sure you make it really clear. It's not about entitlement or expectation. And the third thing is, tell the truth. Just say you need to plan your future. Hey, dad, can we have a chat? I've been working here for 5 years now. I've been working here for a year, 10, 15 years, whatever it is. Tad, can we have a chat? I just need to plan my future. And until I understand what your thoughts are with the future of the farm, the property and so on, it's pointless me sort of carrying on absolutely in the dark. So can we start the conversation? And I think that's the best way. Those 3 ways are the best ways to have the conversation with your parents. And as a parent, if you're watching this, allow your children to have that conversation with you. And even if you have to instigate it, lead it to allow them to do those things. The second issue that I want to help you with today is to help you get unstuck, help you get unbogged, help you get out of the ditch, whatever. And the big issues are that most people don't know where to start. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know how to start it. They don't know what the issues are and so on. You don't know what you don't know. As Donald Rumsfeld once said, it was the great unknown unknowns. We call it the unaware squared trap. You're unaware of what you're unaware of. Whichever way you want to describe it, it's not knowing. And most people, what I see is most people don't trust because they don't know how to fix it. Most people don't start because they don't know how to fix it. And so you've got these parents who are very good at making decisions. They're fantastic at running the business. They're great at growing grain and cattle and sheep and all that sort of stuff. And they know how to do that. But because they don't know how to fix the estate plan, they choose not to do anything because of the unknown unknowns. And so these are the issues why you're currently stuck. Many people think it's too big, it's too complex, and it's going to be too expensive to get it fixed. And I'll talk about that myth a little later on. But also the other thing is that all your existing advisors probably think they're experts. Your accountant probably has told you he can fix it. Your financial planner may have told you he can fix it and so on. But the truth is that's not the case. So let's talk about how you get unstuck. And the first thing you do is you talk with a facilitator. You talk with someone who's not your accountant, not your solicitor, someone who's like the ringmaster and can bring all the pieces together to make the puzzle work. You talk with a facilitator, and I'll tell you one thing up front you can't do. You can't solve this from within your family. And I say this all the time. This is not something that you can just sit down around the table and have a conversation. In fact, I know a lot of facilitators do that, but that's the opposite of what I do. I have conversations with mum and dad together, separately. Then I will go and speak with each of the children individually without their spouses, just one at a time by themselves. Because if you're all together in a room, the loud one gets to be heard. The quiet one just sits in the corner and is grumpy by the time they get out because no one ever listens to them anyway. So you can't solve this from within the family. You need someone to come in and be a facilitator, and also to just bring in the solicitors, the accountants, and the financial planner and so on as they're needed. Okay, you don't need those people trying to take charge because this is not their area of expertise. You don't need to have a talk fest around the table, as I said. And you just need to invest in getting someone professional to come in and to get this done. Okay? Otherwise, it's just going to drag on and on. Find someone who's going to give you a timetable. You know what it's going to cost you. There's a timetable. For example, with us, it's a 90-day turnaround. We want to get this finished for you in 90 days to the best of our ability. You just want to get it done and want to get on with it. And the truth is that the how is it's not complex. It's not going to take you forever, and it's not going to cost you a bomb. When you look at the alternative, it is pennies on the dollar. The third thing let's chat about is family harmony. And I think that's one of the really key issues, because at the end of the day, if you forget everything else, forget how much money you've got, forget all those sorts of things. At the end of the day, as parents, all we want to do is to know that our kids are going to get together. They're going to be mates, and they're not going to be fighting. They're not going to be squabbling. And each of their children are going to be mates with each other. And I mean, that's kind of the ideal. We all dream of, our kids getting together as Christmas. They're all still getting on, and the grandkids are all good mates as well. And I'm going to tell you the quickest way to put a bomb through that is to, so I'm telling you why family harmony is so important. The issue is a lack of communication. We've sort of touched on this enough times, is not starting the conversation between the generations. Why is you need to involve outsiders, and we've talked on that. The third thing is you need to have a look, well, I'm suggesting you have a look, you know, you'll work out what you need to do, but suggesting you have a look at making sure you create fairness, not equality. It's not always about equality. I mean, sometimes fairness is equality, and that's okay too. But, you know, 8 times out of 10, fairness is not equal. So when you're looking at what each of the kids' opportunities are after you're gone, you've got to look at what's fair for each of them. Some have contributed a lot. Some you may have helped along the way and helped them with deposits on houses or bought them a house or whatever. So if you've already given to some, then you need to be fair with the others as well. So they're the issues you look at. And the final reason why issues revolve around family harmony is a lack of having documented certainty. You know, kids just want to know that something's written down, it's been agreed to. If legal documents need to be done, such as your wills or business agreements, whatever, you've got the documentation certainty. So how you do it, how you communicate with the family, how you create the family harmony is, and I'll say this again, you can't fix this within the family. Please don't just go out and invite all the kids around, sit down with you and, you know, mum and dad and all the kids sit around the table and try and have this conversation to get this solved. It is not going to work, okay? It just doesn't work that way. You can't fix it in the family. Get a facilitator, and you need to have that facilitator help you create a spreadsheet so you can see where all the assets are going to go. Are the tax effects in regard to giving one child one particular asset that might have a huge tax liability as opposed to giving cash to someone else? How do you create, so you've got a spreadsheet so you can see what the numbers look like, but how do you create certainty for everyone? And the final thing is, you know, just creating that protection around your assets so that if one of your kids, and statistically, no matter what sort of family you're in, statistically 50% of your children are going to get divorced. And I'm sorry to bring you bad news, but I mean, I need to look at worst case scenarios to make sure that if they happen or when they happen in your family arrangements, that these have already been planned for and taken care of. So you need to find ways, and that's going to create family harmony, so that you know if something happens to one of your kids, if they go through a bankruptcy, if they go through a marriage breakup, if they need some help with taxation issues and so on, that you're creating protection around the assets and the prosperity that you're passing down from one generation to the other. And if you're looking at passing stuff down before you pass away, you know, let's have a conversation around some of the issues with that. If you gift early, then the asset that you've gifted a child is at risk and so on. So we need to look at all those things, and we need to communicate around all those issues to make sure you've created harmony within the family. I'll say it again, so the kids get together at Christmas. Now, you could well ask, why do I get involved in this? This is all I do now. I don't do anything else. This is all I do. I help people create certainty and confidence, security, and simplicity in regard to their estate and their succession plans. I want to help people create legacies that are significant and do it with dignity, so that when you're gone, everyone can look back and say, wow, didn't mum and dad do a fantastic job? You know, it was fair. Everyone's still getting together at Christmas and you know, we're all having a great time. But what motivates me to want to help you to do that? Well, many of you know of my story about my mate, Brian. Brian and I were together at school, boarding school, many, many years ago. And 12 years ago now, Brian was killed in a plane crash, in a commercial plane crash overseas. He was going away for a weekend, and half the people on the plane didn't make it and half of the people did. And Brian left behind a beautiful wife and 4 wonderful kids who fortunately have grown up to be happy and content, and in a good place. But when it happened, it was an absolute nightmare. Brian didn't have an up-to-date will. He didn't have enough life insurance. You know, the kids were at risk of being kicked out of their boarding school. Could have been kicked out of the home they were living in and so on. In fact, they did have to move out of the home they were living in. And, you know, I tried to help Brian a few times, and it always sort of fobbed me off and said, oh, you know, come on, Mark, we'll go and play golf, or we're going to beer, or something like that. And he kind of won every conversation I had with him. And it, you know, it just breaks my heart to know that I didn't try hard enough to help Brian to get all this stuff sorted, which would have made life so much simpler for his wife and his kids after he was gone. And I agonized for years over the fact that I hadn't done my job well enough for his family. And I vowed I'd never let anyone else, I'd never let that happen to anyone else. If I had any way I could positively impact their lives, I was going to try hard. And sometimes people tell me I push too hard and I'm a pain in the backside and so on, and I naggle on about getting all this stuff done. But I've seen the bad side. I've seen the dark side. I've seen what happens when you don't pay attention to this. And I know you wouldn't want that to happen to your family. I know you wouldn't want your family to fall apart. I know you wouldn't want your family to be protected, prepared, and to be safe. And I know you wouldn't want your spouse to be in a position where she had to move out of the home and or the property or whatever, because you hadn't spent time, just spending a little bit of time to get this stuff sorted. So I know you all have pride in getting this stuff done. So I vowed, as part of, I guess, the balance of my life is that I have a goal of helping positively affect the lives of 1 million people to get this stuff sorted. Sorry, not 1 million people, 1 million families. And if I can encourage people, whether you do it with me, whether you deal with me or you deal with someone else, if I can encourage you to get this stuff done, then you're one of the people that's going to help me achieve my goal of 1 million families who are going to have certainty, confidence and security when mum and dad have passed on. And that's my driving motivation. But look, I just want to reiterate once again, I'm offering everyone a free 30-minute chat to sit down and to get this sort of stuff sorted. And please take advantage of it. There's a sign up now on the side of what you're looking at here, or somewhere on the page, depending whether you're using an iPhone or an iPad or a computer to watch this. But somewhere there'll be a link you can click to book the free 30-minute call. As I say, there's no obligation. You don't have to deal with me afterwards. But if I can help you to make progress in regard to getting unstuck here, if I can do anything to help you make sure your family are going to be okay, then I'm happy to do that. So please book the call. We've created a process, the 9-step rural succession solutions process, and it looks like this. We start with a cuppa and a chat. We go through and we from the cuppa and the chat and all the questions we ask, we work out what the burning issues are. I then focus on family harmony. We then do what's called a due diligence to make sure we understand who owns what. Well, actually, we get the solicitors to do the due diligence, the very high detail and so on. But I mean, they check the trust deeds, understand who owns what liabilities you've got. Have you set up your beneficiaries in the superannuation fund in the most effective way, and so on. So all those sorts of things we're going to do as part of the due diligence. Then we go on and we do the distribution matrix. And that was kind of like the big spreadsheet we were talking about before. We create a spreadsheet so that you can list all your assets, your liabilities and so on. And effectively in the columns, you can say, okay, well, this is where each asset is going to go, and what's fair, and to make sure that at the end of it all, there's fairness along the bottom when you tally up what your distribution is and who gets what opportunity, that you've created fairness there. We then do protected prosperity. We make sure that the plans you put in place, we're only going to deal with solicitors. We can only work with you if you're going to deal with solicitors who are experts in this field. I can't ruin my reputation by working with solicitors who don't know what they're talking about and don't do this properly. Protected prosperity will make sure that your wealth, your prosperity is actually protected against all the things we've talked about before. We then make sure everything's signed, sealed and delivered. We then go through step 8 is the human issues, what we call the family estate blueprint. These are the things, these are the issues no one else will ever ask you about. Where do you want to be buried? You know, who do you want doing the eulogy? All these sorts of things. Do you want to be buried, cremated? What music do you want? What flowers, down to what flowers? You know, if you've read my book, you know the arum lilies story. What flowers do you want on your coffin when you're gone? What are the things that you'd never want left unsaid for your children? What are the things you need to help them with? Who's the tactical team of people that they'd need to help them to move through your period of what do I call it, emotional paralysis? Who needs to be there to help you through your period of emotional paralysis, whoever's left behind, and to make sure that all the things that you've said you wanted for your family, for your spouse, for your children and so on, make sure they're all implemented. And our step 9 is called peace of mind. And what that does is, this is pointless getting all this sorted and then never looking at it, sticking it in the top drawer like you probably did 15 years ago and never looking at it again. We're going to stay on your case. We're going to have a meeting with you every year. We're going to make sure that as things change in your life and in your children's life, we keep this stuff up to date. And that's a very important part of the whole process. And that's why I want to give you the opportunity of this 30-minute free conversation with me, is to help you to think about these sorts of things. So even if you're going to do it yourself, you know, you can, you know what you need to think about. And so that's our process. That's our 9-step process. And we just make sure every year, in the final step, as I said, we make sure that every year everything's kept up to date. So as things change, as you buy a property, sell a property, and I'll be talking to your children. So if they change their mind, you know, they don't want to come back to the farm anymore, they do want to come back to the farm now, you know, we can change the plan simply and inexpensively if we're just doing it a little bit every year and making sure everything's kept up to date. So we want to help transform your situation from where it is now to where ideally I know you'd like to have pride in knowing that if anything happens to you, all this stuff is sorted. So I want to help you with that transformation. And we're not just focusing on one bit of the whole pie. We, in regard to what I do, I become the facilitator for you. We're the ringmasters. We call in the specialists when they're needed, your own specialists, outside specialists, certainly in the legal area and so on. And we run a team of specialists to make sure that you get the outcome that you'd really want. Now, if you look at this, there's 3 ways you can move forward from here. You can say, Mark, that's all fantastic. You know, I'd love to have family harmony, love to get unstuck and all that sort of stuff. You've basically got 3 options. You can do nothing, and you can pay nothing, and you can cross your fingers and just hope and you know, live in that dream that all your kids are, you know, really happy together. They're never going to argue. They're never going to fight even after they get married and have their own children. You know, you can do nothing and pay nothing and cross your fingers and hope for the best. That is one strategy. And that'll save you money right now. As I'll explain later, it'll probably cost a bomb later on, but I mean, you know, if nothing goes wrong, you can take that risk, and that's a risk that's available for you. The second way you can do it is to do it yourself, or do it with some of your existing advisors who dabble in this area or think they know what they're doing. You can do it yourself, and you can get your backside suit off. Something's going to go wrong. Somebody's going to contest the will. Somebody's going to squabble. Something won't have been set up properly. And I'm going to tell you now the downside. Understand that if you don't fix this now, at the other end, when, and you might say, well, I'll be gone, I don't care. But know that it's going to cost whoever's left behind, and it will come out of the estate. It's going to start at about $200,000 and work its way up. $250,000 is usually, if you look at what happened, how much it's going to cost to contest a will, you're probably looking at about $250,000, up to 10–20% of the value of the estate. In some ways, it's a bit like a divorce. If anyone's been divorced or knows someone that's been divorced, I'm sure the lawyers just get together and they say, okay, how much is the estate worth? They look at what 20% of the estate is and they say, okay, we'll just keep going until we get up to about 20%. And then, you know, that's the figure they go for. You know, call me cynical, whatever, but I'm going to tell you, everyone that's been divorced, that's kind of the ballpark. Start at $200,000 for the exercise. And sorry, we're not talking about divorces here. We're talking about contested estate plans and work your way up. You know, I know people who've spent millions contesting wills, but I don't know anyone that's spent less than 200,000. So that's your second option, is you do it on the cheap, maybe, and you do it yourself. You get some people who think they're good at this stuff, and you know, good luck with that. The third option is we can help you. We can help you. Okay, start with a 30-minute call. If you like what you hear and we think we can work together, we can help you. We will get all this stuff sorted within 90 days. And I'm telling you now, it's going to, you know, between myself, between an estate planning specialist solicitor, I'm going to tell you now, it's going to run into somewhere $15,000 to $30,000, depending on the size of your estate. That's what your investment's going to be to create peace of mind for your family. And pretty much that's going to be 10% of what it's going to cost at the other end if one person contests a will, or one person gets divorced, or one person goes bankrupt. They're the sorts, you know, if somebody gets divorced and you've got 3 kids, well, you've just lost probably a sixth of your estate has gone out the window. So just work out what a sixth of your estate is, and that's what's going to cost if one of your kids gets divorced and you haven't set this up properly. So let me reiterate, let's sit down, a no obligation 30-minute chat, and you know, both of us can make a decision we don't like each other and don't want to go any further with it. But I mean, we can have a chat. I can give you some ideas. If you want to take those ideas and go and do it yourself or work with someone else, look, that's fine. I've done my bit. And if we have a 30-minute chat and you like what we do, then when we work together, then that's great too. But at least start with a free 30-minute chat. I'm not going to hound you after the chat if you don't want to talk with me or if I don't want to talk with you anymore. But at least let's do that bit, because that's going to help you get unstuck. And we'll have what we call our qualifying conversation and all that sort of stuff. And we talk about how we work together. And both of us have to be happy that it's going to be a working relationship if we do decide to go forward. But once again, I'm going to reiterate this. I'm actually happy to have the 30-minute conversation, even if you don't want to work with me, because if I can help you be one of the 1 million families, then I'm making progress regardless. Okay, it's not going to change. You working with me or not is not going to change my life, but I want to make sure it changes yours. Now, here's the opportunity. You've got the link there to book the 30-minute chat. I'd like to, if you've got any questions, please type them in the box. May not get to all of them, but we want to answer as many as we can. Now, for some people who don't know me from Adam, let me just say there's a website called markwestcott.com. Hopefully it'll be up on the screen here somewhere, or you'll probably get it in one of the emails from us. Mark Westcott, that's MarkWestcott.com. Go to that, you'll understand a bit who I am, my family, people I've dealt with. There's testimonials there from people. It's not a salesy page, it's really just a page that gives you information about who I am as a human being, things we do like angel flight and so on, my family, and lots of people we've dealt with who fortunately have nice things to say, which is great. People have bad things to say. I haven't got any of those, so I can't put them up for you. But I just want to repeat one more time the cost if you don't do this properly. And in some ways, it doesn't matter what your estate size is, as long as you've got I mean, usually these days with superannuation insurance and what other assets you own, even if you've got debts, you're going to be looking at a fee. If something goes wrong at the other end, a fee or a loss of money to a divorced partner, a son or daughter-in-law who leaves the family, or all these sorts of things, as taxation issues and so on, which could end up costing your estate a whole lot of money. You're going to be starting at least $200,000, $250,000, or 10 to 20% of your estate. So you need to think about that and say, well, okay, do I invest some money now to make sure that doesn't happen? Because it will happen. You know, we all know stories of families that have fallen apart because of a lack of planning. Everybody knows families. Everybody knows a number of families where it's just turned to dust when someone's died because, you know, one of the kids or one of the kids' spouses, one of the in-laws that's come in, nudges the son or your daughter, you know, your son or your daughter, whoever they're married to, and, you know, why didn't we get this? Why did he get that? And it's going to happen. You know, call me Dr. Doom. I don't care. But I mean, I've been around long enough to know that it's very few families who go through this sort of stuff unscathed if you don't do it properly. But the other point is, would you want your kids not talking to each other? Would you want your grandchildren not all being friends because their parents are arguing over money and never talk to each other again? Is that what you'd want for your family? I know I don't, and I'm sure you don't either. Anyway, look, last chance. We traditionally work with about 3 to 4 families a month. Normally, we can take people on straight away. Sometimes we can have up to a 2 or 3 month waiting period. And remember, the 30-minute session is free. So I've got plenty of time set aside for the free 30-minute session. Get on, ask all the questions you want to, and I'll help you as much as you can. And then I'll feel good about the fact that you're one family further towards my 1 million families that I've helped. Thanks for your time today. I know a lot of you have written some notes and have some questions on the side. I didn't want to go past 45 minutes today, and I'm sorry I'm there already without answering the questions. So I'll email back and maybe create some sort of newsletter or something with the most common questions, and I'll answer those, or do another little video that I'll send out to everyone that's registered for this webinar and answer those questions for you over the next few days. So thanks for your attendance today. Please take the time to book. I'm going to tell you one more time. It is free. There is no obligation. Take everything you need out of my brain and go away, do it yourself, do whatever you want to do. But do something, please. You've invested the time to come here today. I wish you well. I wish for you that you will have pride at the end of the day in having created fairness and having created certainty, confidence and security for your family, for those that you love, those that you care for. I'm Mark Westcott, and I help people create extraordinary legacies, and I hope I can help you create yours. Thanks for your time today.
Well, thank you, Mark. That was a very informative webinar. Does anyone have any questions for Mark tonight? He's online now, so he can answer any questions you might have. Feel free to send them through either the Q&A function or through the chat if you're not sure how either one works. Mark did send through a few links through the chat, which has his booking link, his website, and a few other little things if you want to have a look at those links as well and organize that as well. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, please send them through.
Yeah, happy if anyone has any questions, or I don't know whether they can talk through the Zoom or they're all muted or whatever, but happy to have a chat if anyone wants to ask anything personally as well.
Yeah, well, if you would prefer to chat, you can press the raise the hand button below and I'll put through the permission to talk.
I know I didn't cover everything, so happy to take any questions. Nope, got a quiet group out there today. And I will ask, is that Roger? Is that you from Sandalwood? Who I haven't seen for many, many years.
Oh, I'll give you permission there to talk.
Hey, Roger, you're still muted there, but
yeah, Mark, how you going?
Good, mate, good. Yeah, I saw your name come up there and figured it must have been you. So lovely to chat to you.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, no, everything's good. We're at Roma now.
Oh, you're down in Roma. Okay, didn't realise that.
But I'm involved with the Droughtmaster Society, and I have a bit to do with Next Gen. So I think it's great. Thank you very much for doing this, and I think it's very important. As you know, we've probably already done ours, but
yeah.
It was amicable, and I think it is very important. And you're correct about the communication. It's a pretty hard conversation to have, but when you do have it, it's good.
Yeah. No, thanks, mate. And I hope we catch up out at Roma sometime. I haven't seen you for so many years, so considering we used to live so close to each other when we were kids.
Yeah, no, look, thank you. I don't want to hog it, but if you ever come and bust, give us a yell.
Okay, good on you, Roger. Good chatting to you. Bye, Janie. I see there's a question here from Lawrence too, saying prior to having a chat with you, is there a list of various topics that we should be getting our parents to start thinking about that we need to have ready? Lawrence, look, you know, that's a never-ending list, I guess. But I mean, the shortest way would just be to say, you know, what have they thought about what their plans are? Have they thought about what they'd like to happen? Because as I often say to people, especially on cattle stations, you know, one day you're not going to be as quick up the fence when the bull comes charging in the yards, and you know, have you thought about a time frame about when you'd like to sort of wind down, your role in the business and maybe the opportunity for the kids coming through? What are their goals and aspirations? What are their values around what they want to happen in the future? But certainly a lot of the process we focus on now, and I'm always learning on with clients as well. But certainly, what are their goals? What are their aspirations? What are their values? And what is it they want for everyone in their family? And what's going to give them the greatest pride? So whatever happens, whether they live to 100 or whether something happens and they don't make it. When they're sitting back at the end of the day watching, what are the things that are going to give them the greatest pride in regard to how they successfully transition the business and so on from one generation to the next? And I think for most parents, that's going to be the ability to be able to sit there and from above or from wherever and just watch all the kids still getting on, and the grandkids all still getting on. I think everyone I talk to, that's their ultimate aim. And I have this thing, Lawrence, called the exponential grief curve. And what I've found with people I work with is that the longer the conversation isn't had, in other words, the longer the silence maintains, it's kind of an exponential grief curve. In other words, it just doesn't go up in a straight line. The longer it is, the more grief is created, to the point where, kids and their spouses are arguing so much because, the kids won't talk to the parents because there's all the unknowns and there's all the frustration around that. I've seen marriages fall apart, with the children because, the child won't talk to parents, the parents won't talk to the child, no one knows what's going on. It just creates a whole lot of grief, which becomes very, very unhealthy the longer that silence is maintained. So short answer to your question is just get them to think about what their goals are for the future and what they'd like to look back on when they're looking in their retirement. Although most graziers don't think they're going to retire, they're going to have their boots on, but when they're looking back, even if it's in the afterlife, what would they want to see? Okay, I've just had a question in regard to resending the links. If you click the chat button, I hope that answers your question, Lawrence. If you click on the chat button down the bottom of the screen, you might see the links I have sent. If not, I'll put them over in the question and answer section if I know how to do that, if I can find out. Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that one. Sorry, can you do that, Michaela?
Yeah, I'll just see if I can.
Look, basically, if you want to book a time, it's book.markwestcott.com. And if Michaela can just copy and paste those out of the chat, I can't do it myself.
Yeah, I've just sent them through, so that you should grab the links there. But if not, we will send them out with the recording as well. So that way everyone's got access to them. That way, yeah, you can grab them again if you've missed them.
Yeah. Anyone else got a question they want to ask? I'll tell you what, watching that webinar, I saw how many times I say wanna. I'm gonna have to be more grammatically correct and say want to. The people that did the captioning, I'll better talk to them.
Those automatic captions every time.
That's right.
But yeah, so I guess if no one else has got any questions tonight, I'm sure Mark's more than willing to have a conversation with you. So yeah, please get in contact with him. But I guess, yeah, if we've got no more questions tonight, we'll let you guys go. But thank you very much for joining us. And thank you very much to Mark for his webinar. I think he's given us everyone a lot to think about. So yeah, if you've got any questions, please get in contact with Mark, or you can get in contact with us and we can get in contact with, we can pass Mark's details on to you. Pass
Okay.
Mark's details on to you. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you everyone.
No, thanks for the opportunity, and good luck, and good evening, everyone.
Thank you everyone. Good night.